well, happy Black Friday. It's episode 52 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. Hopefully, I'll survive the early lines if you actually still go out and shop early. Now, actually, I went out earlier and actually covered some Black Friday shopping for my local news station here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States, as always. But joining me down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. And Gus, do you guys do Black Friday the same way America does?
First of all, happy Black Friday and also happy Thanksgiving yesterday. Not really. Is mostly was I call the Brazilian Black Friday the Cyber Monday. It's a lot Black Friday deals online. Basically, Amazon does it, like big retailers, but like the pop and mom and pop shop, the brick door stores, they don't do. And it's not an extended holiday. Like in America, makes sense. People shop on Black Friday because it's an extended holiday on Thanksgiving. Like here's just a normal Friday, like a business day. But yesterday was also kind of like a holiday because of the Brazil game. So whenever Brazil play in the World Cup, we kind of have like a day off or like a half day off. But we was a good Friday, and let's get in the World Cup because I'm all dressed up. I'm ready to talk about today's game and also Thursday's games.
Yeah, and which one do you want to start? You want to start with the American match or the Brazilian match?
I want to start with the America matchup since it just finished an hour ago, and so it was U.S. nil, England nil, and my analysis was I feel like Greg Benhalter was able to keep the team more steady, more patient, less more calm, but it lacked the. I feel like I was talking even with you during the game. Like if US had a Richarlison, like what Brazil had on Thursday, a guy inside the penalty box, inside the little area that could get the ball, like and get the right kick or the right header. I feel like US should have won because they were creating opportunities. There were plenty of opportunity created with Serginho Desta, with Pulisic, that was a little bit isolated on the left wing. I feel like that's one of the things Greg Benhalter should keep an eye on for Tuesday's game versus Iran is how to better use Christian Pulisic because he's the best U.S. Player, but I think he's been not used correctly because if you think about it, he doesn't get the ball as much, to create opportunities. Like, if you the only U.S. goal on this World Cup was an opportunity Pulisic created with a beautiful pass to Tim Weah. So I feel like this game. I feel like Christian Pulisic was not correctly used, but one player that I think stand out was the best U.S. player. Definitely was Serginho Desta on the right wing. I feel like he was able to create opportunities, create a lot of trouble to the English defense, but it was a good draw. I mean, U.S. still has controls their own destiny, and that's you know, and the draw, like even like do you saw the last play of the game? Like US could have, on the set piece, could have thrown the ball inside the area, and Greg like can't put like, hey, pass the ball. It's okay. The draw is still like not a bad result, and for England as well wasn't a bad result.
Well, honestly, I was very upset with the last free kick because I understand that we didn't want anything stupid to happen and for England to get a counterattack. But I feel like in that situation, you're coming down to the last play of the game. I feel like you got to go for it because if we somehow get a goal there, then you don't even have to win on Tuesday next week against Iran because now the situation for anyone that may not understand. So at the top of the table right now, you have England at 4 points. You have Iran in second place at 3 points since they defeated Wales earlier today 2-0. You have us, the United States, at 2 points in third, and you have Wales in last place at 1 point. So now we have to beat Iran. We can't draw. We can't lose. So obviously the draw is an okay result. Like obviously getting that extra point, you don't have to worry about the England Wales game anymore. But I feel like in that spot, especially with the amount of chances that we had throughout the game, you had to throw it in there one more time to see what would have happened. I mean,
Yeah,
I feel like
that
that was weak.
I was thinking exactly the same way. I was like, You never know what would have happened if you put the ball inside the penalty area, because a goal would have definitely revert everything. Like if US would have scored, then US even control even more their own destiny. They would have needed just a tie.
Yeah, it's just on the one hand, yes, you want to win, but at the same time, to get a draw against that England squad is a very good result. I mean, because England, if you look at their roster, you have some of the best players in the world, and I was kind of going cruising through British Twitter. Those folks are very, very upset right now. They want Southgate fired for this draw. I mean, they're complaining about him. What's his name? It was like Foreign. That they wanted him to come off the bench, and they're complaining that our best midfielder isn't playing right now because and they were mad at that Mason Mount was playing over him, and it didn't seem like that England was getting much push at all. England did not look like a vastly more talented squad when on paper they are, and I think tactically Berhalter absolutely dominated Southgate today, for sure.
Yeah, like one of the examples that the British media used was Phil Foden, the right back, the Manchester City player that was on the bench, and and Gary Neville was believed that a massive talent on the England bench is Southgate best player by a mile. Like it just Southgate was gonna take criticism because you know it was not the draw itself, because England just need another draw to get in. It was the massive differential between the first game, how attractive England won, how persuasive, how aggressive, and now England was dominated by US. If you would have to give the win for a team US deserved, US created the best opportunities. Christian Pulisic had a kick that went over the went on the hit the bar, so I feel like US deserve to win. But that's why the fans that are already not happy with the Southgate last big competition, the way it ended, the Euros in the final at Wembley, they already have that on back on their mind, and losing, tying with the US that it's not the powerhouse of soccer. It's not the like it might be the second best team. We're gonna see on Tuesday who is it, Iran or US. But I feel like Southgate is gonna, and it's not bad. If Southgate wins the World Cup, everything's gonna be forgotten. But of course, today he's gonna take a lot of criticism.
Yeah, just it feels like it feels the England team is slow as molasses right now, and the U.S. wasn't able to make him pay for it. But some of these other teams, like a France, for example, if he has to face a team like that, if it's to face Brazil, if he has to face one of these other top teams, if they come out playing like that, they're gonna get beat. They're gonna lose. There's got to be more creativity uh, on that side of the ball for England. But I mean, I think they're going to beat Wales handily. I think they're going to top the group no problem. Just obviously, I think you have to be concerned leaving that game if you are an English fan. I'm just curious to see how their lineups move.
And
Moving forward.
it's funny. Wales still have a chance to qualify.
Yeah, but a lot of stuff's going to happen for them because they're going to have to win. They have to
Just
hope
one,
that
one
somebody
thing
wins.
just one thing needs to happen. If Wales beat England and US beat Iran, they are in, and then England will be out.
Wait, but what
But
about goal differential?
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, that's true. They would have to beat by two. I think two. No, they would have to beat
Like
by.
6 goals or something, right?
It would have to beat by 3-0. Because if they beat 3-0, then England would have a -1 goal differential, and Wales would have a +1. So Wales will have to beat England 3-0, and then US would have to beat Iran.
Yeah, so I don't see that happening. I mean, and we could briefly talk about that other game too, the Iran Wales, because I mean that result is pretty stunning to me. That because I know that game was 0-0 until the 98th minute, and then Iran just knocks off 2 goals right at the end to take the game 2-0. Just I felt like the Welsh have to be super disappointed. I felt like they had a golden opportunity here to maybe advance to the round of 16 in their first showing since 1958, and it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, it's not gonna be cut this time. Definitely, the Welsh were expecting, because if they, had beaten Iran, then they would be very comfortable now. Because then would it be England 4, Wales 4. Then they would have played against England, only need a 1-0 win, but now they need a 3-0 win.
Yeah, and go look ahead to that U.S. Iran game because right now, I really feel like we should have 6 points right now. We should have beaten Wales if it wasn't for the stupid Walker Zimmerman penalty in the 80th minute. If we could just finish, any chance or execute a corner kick proper, and that's another thing too. The corner kicks in this game were really getting on my nerves because the first half, our corner kicks, I felt like we had no motion at all in our set piece. The second half, I felt like we were doing a better job, but just we weren't ever close on the corner kick. It
But
felt like.
credit to Henry Maguire. I know he takes a lot of criticism for the way he played for Manchester United, but he was dominating the defense part of that. But again, it comes back to the problem that I mentioned before. US does not have what we call the classic number 9, the big striker, the guy who get troubles, who finds space to get the header. That's the I feel like the biggest problem US have is not having the big guy that can, creates problem and opportunities when set pieces and corner kicks come up. Like Brazil had Richarlison. Look how the difference he made on Thursday.
Right. And of course, we'll get into Brazil here in just a moment. No, when I look at this Iran match, now that Iran knows all they need is a draw to advance, I'm afraid they're just going to sit there and park the bus for 90 minutes. So I feel like the U.S. for 90 minutes is going to have to find a way to destroy the bus. How do you approach a game like this where the opponent's going to park the bus?
I don't see that bad. I feel like it's going to be good for US, because if one thing the US show is that they have intensity and create opportunities. But the problem is they can't take much to score. If they score in the first half, especially by the end of the first half, that's the perfect timing to score. If they score by the end of the first half, then they will destroy the defense of Iran. Iran will have to come forward, and then US in the second half can play comfortably on a counterattack, but they have to know how to use a counterattack, because one of the things that US couldn't do on the Wales game, especially in the second half, was created counterattack opportunities. And that's going to be important in a game versus Iran, where it's a do or die game.
Right. Because Iran's going to be fighting ever a tooth, nail, and scratch just to make sure that thing is a tie at the bare minimum. So it's you definitely. I feel like I'd rather be Iran heading into this game, but with the U.S., all you gotta do is get a goal ahead, and then you completely change the outlook of that game. So it's gonna be fascinating to see how both teams approach that game. I feel like the U.S. probably has more talent on paper, but I'm not lying. I don't like how this sets up here just because of how Iran attempts to play. Like I know in the English game the other day, they really were attempting to park the bus. Now it didn't work for them because England tore them apart, and hopefully the U.S. can do similar things. But I don't know about our ability to pull off what England did.
But
On
but
Monday.
but but you compared it with the England game. When did England score the goal against Iran? When did that happen? It was
That
early.
happened like 15 minutes in or something like
Was
that.
early in the game. Was early in the game. That's what I'm saying. Was actually 35 minutes. That's what I'm saying. The perfect timing by the end of the first half. That's when England scored first by the end of the first half, and they used that desperation of Iran being behind and had to play to play attack to get two more goals by the end of the first half. So that's what US have to keep in mind. If they score by the end of the first half, that's going to completely change the direction of the game.
What would be your prediction for that Iran U.S. game?
Do you know what's funny? That game reminds me a lot of the US Algeria game of 2010.
See, that's what I've been thinking because it was a very similar setup, right? Because we had to win, and of course,
Yeah.
Landon Donovan scores in the 89th minute.
90th minute.
90th, yeah. Man, I can still hear Ian Darks. That was the first World Cup I ever watched. It's really the first few games of soccer I ever watched was that World Cup. And I remember Ian Darks, go, United States. And, I think that was the moment that I was like, yeah, I got to keep watching this.
Yeah, I remember that too. I was glued to the television. Even I was never went to I only entered US once, and I didn't have much connection. But I was glued to the television when Donovan scored. I was like ecstatic. I even still have the comment on my Facebook, like celebrating the goal because I was in disbelief. Like the US had to win to get in. So I feel like it might came down to it. It's the same situation. Like a team that is not like a big powerhouse like Algeria and Iran, and you
And
know,
they're both known for parking the bus because when Algeria was in, they were known for parking the bus too and playing a very defensive style.
yeah. But it's funny, Nick, how in term because this game is not only interesting on the things on the field but off the field too. Like US and Iran don't have the friendliest international relations,
No,
especially over the last few years when you had the famous Iran nuclear deal that has been criticized for many politicians.
and
So
then Trump pulls it and then it proceeds to basically nuke one of their top generals in the middle.
yeah,
So it's not good politically. Now, I will say this: I don't know how much that's going to factor in here because remember, the Iranian players and a lot of the fans there are currently protesting their government over treatment of protesters and other human rights issues. So I feel like the Iranian people are more concerned with Iran right now than they are with the United States.
yeah, that's a good point. But of course, for a lot of Iranians, they still have the back in their minds, like, hey, we can eliminate USA in the biggest soccer competition and revenge a lot of the things that happened, geopolitically. So
Right.
I feel like it's gonna be the feeling over the weekend in Tehran. I bet.
I bet it's going to be a very physical game. I mean, the American team better be ready for some cheap shots. I feel like.
And I definitely, the Iranian government, we have a term here called bisha. It's like the unofficial payment for players to like incentivize, for definitely the Iranian government is going to be like, hey, if you guys won, we're going to give, we're going to hand a big check for all the players because there's going to be historical. And imagine for the Iranian government how this, victory is going to look good for the government of Iran.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing: that the players they've been like protesting the national anthem and everything else. I don't know if they're exactly going to be celebrating that team when they get back to Tehran. I mean, if anything, they might arrest that team when they get back to Tehran. Unfortunately, just because they're speaking out against the government. Maybe
But
everyone against the U.S. changes that, but I don't know.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Definitely the situation with the moral police and the women's rights and human rights definitely plays a factor in that. But I feel like the Iranian players they're gonna play their best. They're gonna come strong. They had a big win and they play better against Wales. So US have to be ready to and also US have to keep an eye on counterattacks because I read even though they parked the bus, look how strong they came against Wales, especially the goals the way they find it.
Right. It's going to be a very interesting game. And in a way, I kind of hope the Americans before the game kind of do something in solidarity with the Iranians, with the Iranian women who are trying to fight for their freedoms. Um, but I don't know exactly what we can do, especially considering our relationship with the Iranian government, which hopefully at some point gets replaced. But that's that's a whole different discussion.
But my prediction is gonna be US 2-1.
I'm gonna go. I'm feeling a 1-1. Honestly, I'm feeling a draw. I just
Oh, so
yeah
you think US gonna be out?
yeah. I just don't like the spot here. I mean, granted, the U.S. definitely can win. I just haven't seen enough of our ability to finish to comfortably pick us to win this game, especially when I know Iran's going to make it insanely difficult to score at all points during this game. So hopefully they prove me wrong and that we can find a way to get up, as you said. If we can get up on them, then that changes the whole complexion of the game. But we have to score first. Absolutely, we got to find a way to score early. So it'll be a very fascinating game for the United States and Iran. Of course, we'll have more on that next week. All right, switching gears over to Brazil and Serbia. Brazil won yesterday 2-0 against the Serbians. However, y'all did suffer some injuries. I personally didn't get to see a lot of this game, so Gus, I'll just let you take it away and kind of explain what you saw from your perspective on the Brazilian team.
I mean, TJ came up with a really offensive lineup. Only one defensive midfielder and two offensive midfielder like Paqueta and Neymar. But I was disappointed because I feel like Neymar was a little bit overshadowed. He had to, pick up the ball in the midfield to create opportunities because he's a big differential. Like the first goal that Brazil scored was Neymar's biggest play in the game. Like he came, pick up the ball, dribble two Serbian defenders, and then even Brazil got lucky because the play was Neymar trying to go ahead, but Vinny Jr. Shot the ball, the keeper safe, and then what I said about US having a number 9 who was there to put his knee in the ball. He's Charlison. Great score, 1-0. And then when Brazil was ahead, Serbia had to attack, and then Brazil got the counter attack right. And the second goal, you saw right the second goal Brazil scored. That was the beautiful goal, the prettiest goal the World Cup had so far. Beautiful masterpiece of Richarlison. Was I what I can describe was presence of mind to slow the ball, put the ball up, and just volley. It was the prettiest volley I ever seen in a World Cup.
Kind of reminds me of the Saudi Arabian goal from the other day, where the one that took the lead in the win for Saudi Arabia against Argentina.
Yeah, it reminded me too, but I think Richarlison was harder because he had to hit the ball in the air, but it was,
Right.
but was, but now all Brazil worry about is now we don't have our best player Neymar, and we don't have the second best player Danilo, the right back, also injured, and the immediate reserve, the guy who was called up to be the right back sub, Daniel Alves, 39-year-old Daniel Alves that play in Pumas Mexico. And I feel like Tite in the end was punished because he thought he did not had to use Daniel Alves, but now he's now in the corner because now he's gonna put another player improvise there and just show that he only called Daniel Alves for moral support, or he's gonna use Daniel Alves and have two defensive midfielders to help the right side on the defense of Daniel Alves. I don't know what Tite is gonna do, but now Tite is on a corner right now. Like the two players Tite did not want to get injured, it got injured. That's the thing. Like now Tite is now gonna have the weekend to really think what kind of lineup he's gonna put against Switzerland on Monday, and Switzerland's gonna park the bus. They're gonna play defense because they already won their game for 1-0. So a tie looks great to them.
Yeah, I know they tied with y'all last time, right? Like back in 18, or was it?
Yeah, they tie 1-1.
Yeah, so without Neymar and without
Danilo.
Danilo, it definitely is going to be difficult. But I think, if they're going to park the bus, then you got. I mean, both Brazil and Switzerland here have 3 points. I mean, it may be to both teams' advantage here to kind of play to a draw. It's not a must win here at least. And then I think because it's the 4th team in your group is Cameroon, right? Or is it Senegal?
Yeah, Serbia, Cameroon, Switzerland, and Brazil.
Yeah, so I mean, Cameroon, I would expect Brazil should be able to win that game even without Danilo or Neymar. So I really do think that you guys are fine for now, but obviously the concern becomes knockout stages, right? Because we've seen what happens in the past when Brazil loses with their top two players. Because back in 2014, it wasn't just Neymar. You guys also lost, I believe it was Dani Alves, right? Like in the
Daniel, Thiago Silva, he got suspended. That he's now he played really well. By the way, he played really well on on yesterday's game. Like Thiago Silva and Marquinhos, like what a performance! Like Serbia's offense was, inexistent. Like we joked about it on the radio station that I was, commenting yesterday. Like Allison was like the most privileged spectator on that game. Like he should have paid a ticket to watch that game because he wasn't the spectator, not a player. Like Serbia did not had one shot on goal yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously he's going to be huge for y'all moving forward. Be very curious to see how Brazil approaches the next two matches. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll at least get a draw against Switzerland. I think they'll beat Cameroon. They'll be through to the next round. But obviously, you need Neymar back at least for the knockout stages, and hopefully he will be back.
Definitely. And for me, the biggest thing is the quarterfinals because I think Brazil's going to qualify first. And I think whoever comes from Group H, South Korea, Uruguay, and Ghana, Brazil can take care of it. That's, I don't think, is a problem. But the problem is come quarterfinals. That's what the biggest worry because if Brazil would have qualified, let's say at first, then would have played the second of H, which might be Uruguay, South Korea, or Ghana, and then they might play. Let me see, and then they're gonna play the winner of the third game, which is the first of Group E versus second of Group F. So it might be Spain or Croatia or even Belgium, which is gonna be an European team by the either way. So that quarterfinal game give me chills. Give me it worries me. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean that's a game that you're gonna have to be at full strength to win. I mean, because I remember that's what happened back in 2018. You guys ran into Belgium and they took you out. So that's that's really been kind of the Achilles heel for the Brazilians recently. Is those European teams, and they got to find a way to overcome. Because I saw a comment from, I forgot who I saw it from. I saw someone was talking about how European teams, because they play tougher competition year round against other European teams, are more prepared for the World Cup stage than South American teams. And I saw that quote after the Argentina loss to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and now UEFA kind of like even close even more because the dates, the international dates, they used to be for friendly matchups between, let's say, an European team versus a South American team. Now is designated to the European Nations League. So now the European teams have the qualifying for the Euros, and the UEFA Nations League. So literally, European teams play with European teams all the time. Like now, South American teams have the friendlies with African, Middle Eastern teams, Asian teams. That's what they can do because they literally is impossible to play against European teams because the way the UEFA set up the calendar.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like they're just trying to build in their own advantage. Because like they know if they don't give South American teams the opportunity to play them, then they're not going to have the opportunity to be familiar with them before a World Cup. And that strategy's kind of worked for them the past 4 World Cups.
Yeah, I mean Brazil and Argentina. I feel like the last time there was a South American team eliminating uh, a European team was the semifinals in 2014 when Argentina on penalties eliminated the Netherlands. Then after that, Argentina lost in the finals to Germany. Then in 2018, Argentina was eliminated in the round of 32 to France, and then Brazil was eliminated to Belgium in the quarterfinals. So literally, when it came down to the time of the playoffs, the European teams are more built into it. That's and now Brazil can be like a solo act because even Argentina are behind.
Yeah.
Argentina right now is in deep, deep trouble.
I
They
mean,
even
I wanted to ask you about that because, kind of just broadening our outlook to the rest of, I don't know if you had anything else to add on Brazil, but kind of looking at the rest of the World Cup here. What happened to Argentina? How did they lose to Saudi Arabia 2-1? I mean, and they had the 1-0 lead heading into halftime. And then Saudi Arabia comes out, scores a goal. And then one of the most beautiful goals that I see from the corner of the box. Um, wins the game for Saudi Arabia. And now Messi and the rest of the Argentinians are staring down the barrel of the gun here. And they have to beat both Mexico and Poland. How did the result happen?
I mean, first of all, the speech that the Saudi Arabian head coach gave on halftime, that was touch. That was something was very, very intense. I don't know if you saw it. I even
I did not
tried
see
to pull it up. I'm trying to find it here so I can, show it to you. Hold on. Because it was very inspiring. And Argentina is just, they don't have any, like organization tactically. Like it's just like Messi get put the ball on Messi and he will find a way to have a beautiful pass or a shot. But and also it came down to how old Argentina defense is. It was a very, very old defense. Like they have on their lineup Otamendi. Otamendi is a really, really old player. Like Nicolas Otamendi, he's like what? Let me try to find here. He is a very. He's like he's uh he is now 34 years old. So he wasn't a good. He was an average goodish defender, but he's already 34 to almost 35-year-old defender. So that's been probably the Argentina have through the several World Cups is having old and not good defenders and relying a lot on Messi. A lot is a Messi dependency.
Do you see them getting knocked out because I watched that Mexico Poland game, and both of those teams are very sound defensively. Of course, Ochoa had an incredible save against Lewandowski to keep that game at 0-0. Um,
Oh, oh, sure.
I think they're in serious trouble.
I mean, we made a joke. We have a joke here in Brazil that Ochoa is a player that is keep frosted for 4 years, and then he's resurrected in the World Cup. He's like a World Cup player. Like he doesn't play well for 4 years, and then oh, let me put the speech for the Saudi Arabian coach.
I do not hear anything.
Did you got this part?
I couldn't hear it.
Was basically was trying to say was like the players weren't impressing enough. And he made like a comment like, "Hey, if you love Messi so much, go take a selfie with him because he's like, hey, you're not defending well. You're letting Messi play and take control." Like to one of his players, he was like, "Hey, if hey, do you want me to I go there and mark Messi, or are you gonna be standing and stopping, or if just you love Messi so much you want to take a selfie with him?" That's what the Saudi Arabian coach was saying. Like,
That is
and it worked,
hilarious.
and it worked because the performance the second half was completely the opposite.
Yeah, I've got it playing on my screen now just to see the subtitles. Yeah, I can tell. Their locker room's kind of cool. I like how it's all like kind of like a semicircle and stuff. But
Yeah,
definitely,
like
this coach, because I was reading up on him, he has a history of taking under talented teams and really taking them to big success.
oh yeah, I mean he's been like he has been really successful in this kind of environment in African and Middle Eastern countries. Like he has been like really uh, her Hervé Renard. and he's the coach. He coached before several teams in Africa, like the Ivory Coast, Morocco, Zambia, Angola. Like he has been to the World Cup before. He took Morocco to the World Cup and Ivory Coast. He won a title, so he knows how to take this underdeveloped countries and make them at least competitive and taking them to the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be very curious to see how they do against Mexico and Poland because now at this point, if you can win one of those games, you're going through. And because I remember when we had first were talking about this World Cup, I asked you, can any of these Middle Eastern teams make a run? So I remember like Ghana in the South African World Cup, they were kind of like the African team that made a deep World Cup run. Was there going to be a Middle Eastern team? And right now, Saudi Arabia might be that Middle Eastern team.
Yeah, because if they win versus Poland, they are in. They're qualified. And it's funny how Argentina is so lucky that even though they lose, they got the best result out of the other game, which is a tie. Because now, if Argentina wins, they control their own destiny. They only need a tie to get qualified.
Right. So it's so it may not end up mattering too much to the Argentines, but yeah, that's not a very. I don't see them winning the World Cup this year.
Oh no, I don't see. Even though there's the appeal of Messi's last World Cup, he deserves to win. Over how great player he is. I mean, sadly, he played with the Argentine generation that did not supply him with the best defenders. And in a World Cup, it matters. It matters defense. It matters a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of another team that was disappointing so far, Germany once again. I felt like they used up all their luck in 2014 and 2018 to get knocked out in the group stage, and then they come out here and lose to Japan. They were up 1-0, kind of like Argentina, until the last 15 minutes of the game when Ritsu Doan and then Takuma Asano, scored 2 goals back to back to, spur the upset over Germany. Japan wins, and of course their fans. I love the fan celebrations. They were going absolutely insane. But it's crazy because Germany in this game had like 75% of possessions. They had 26 shots to 12 shots. They dominated the game, but they let it get away for them at the end.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened in 2018 when they had the loss to South Korea. Now it's so funny. Like Germany is 0-2 in the last two World Cups against Asian teams.
Yeah, because they lost to South Korea in 18.
Yeah, so you know, if I feel like Germany, maybe especially in both of those games, uh, they came so like on the high heels and they lost. And I feel like Germany was. I feel like the 2014 World Cup and the 7-1, gave the impression that Germany was this dominant team in soccer, and it's now not coming true. Like since the since that that victory. Of course, they won the World Cup, but it was in overtime, and they were a disaster in the 2018. Imagine in getting two consecutive group eliminations in the group stage. I feel like it's just gonna put a crisis on German soccer, and now I feel like it's in a kind of like in a drought, like in a in this like because 2014 was the end of the greatest generation. Like a lot of players they played like their best performance in that World Cup. Like it was like a end of a generation. Like Bastian Schweinsteiger, Mario Götze. It was a lot of players that were probably gonna play their last like best World Cup. And since then, Germany, wasn't able to kind of find replacements to that generation. Like, look at the lineup in 2014. Like, a lot of those players, they weren't the same. Like, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Thomas Müller, Tony Kroos, Mesut Ozil, Miroslav Klose, Philip Lahm. A lot of those players, they already retired or in the process to before the 2018 World Cup. It's just the next generation, I guess, is not prepared enough or not good enough to the generation that got the title in 2014.
Yeah, it's like I remember when they won in 14. A lot of commentators were talking about how it was a culmination of a 10-year plan, essentially. I feel like if they lose here in the group stage again and they get knocked out, I feel like they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and go back through a 10-year rebuilding plan, essentially, to get back to where they were.
Yeah, because if you like this 12-year plan, like look the look the like you mentioned, like it was more like a 12-year plan. I feel like from 2002 to 2014, there were four World Cups, two final, like one final, two semifinals, and one title. So basically, was the best run of four World Cups. But now I feel like after this process was over, now they have to rethink the process because it definitely is not working with two consecutive group stage eliminations. Like no other powerhouse European team ever do that, I believe. Like two consecutive group stage eliminations.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to have a tough time tomorrow with Spain because Spain, they came out firing against Costa Rica yesterday, earlier this week. 7-0.
7-0.
Yeah, it's absolute destruction. Yeah, if Germany doesn't come out playing better, they might get like 2 or 3-0.
I don't maybe is I don't know. The one thing though, it might be the an effect like you know give put Germany more humble, and the 7-0 gives the impression that Spain's dominance. But I think it's going to be a competitive game. Like Germany, of course, is a do or die game. For Germany, is a do or die game. If they lose this game, they're out. They're out because I believe,
Have to at least a draw.
yeah, yeah. But the draw though, if they draw, they're gonna be like, let's say Japan beats Costa Rica. I believe Japan like beats Costa Rica. If Spain draws to Germany, then Germany would have to literally beat Costa Rica by like what 8-0, and Spain would have to lose to Japan, like which is impossible. I don't see that happening because
Yeah,
Japan's
and
looking
honestly,
forward.
Spain and Japan could just literally sit on it for the entire game. If they wanted to.
Yeah, which is ironic though because in the 1982 World Cup, that's what literally Germany did
With Austria,
to yeah with Austria. Yeah, so what the tables have turned.
yeah, honestly, Loki, they would deserve it if it happened. Um, trying to think, are there
But
any other results that stood out to you so far for the World?
another North American team that got really unlucky was Canada. Back in the World Cup after 40 years, but they play really well. But you can't miss a penalty with a team like Belgium. They have a really good generation, and of course, credit to Courtois. He's the best goalkeeper in Europe right now, and he got a great save. And then Belgium, they find a way to score, and I think Canada probably going to come out strong against Croatia, but it's a pity because if they lose, they might be eliminated by the second game. But they play really well, but it's just they got unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the Canadians. They came out with a lot of fire in that game. They just didn't have the talent. Kind of like what you said with the U.S. They don't have the front nine. They don't have the finisher that you need to truly be a team like Belgium. But it wasn't for a lack of heart. So shout out to the Canadians. I thought they played well. Of course, we mentioned Mexico and Poland. Ochoa, awesome performance, and Lewandowski still cannot score in the World Cup. It still cannot score in the World Cup. Um, just an unfortunate miss in that penalty for him.
Yeah, and Robert Lewandowski, he probably thinking like, hey, it was the greatest opportunity to score in a World Cup, something he never done before, and he missed. So if if Poland gets eliminated, it's gonna be a lot of blame on him.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
imagine for
they need to do that.
the best player in the country carry all that. Like now, Lewandowski is gonna play the game of his life against Saudi Arabia because now he needs to save himself because now a lot of blame is on him for Poland to be this, in the situation.
Yeah, and then because their last game in that group would be
Argentina.
Argentina. Yeah, that's not favorable. Not favorable at all for the Polish. Trying to think. So looking at some of the other matchups here. Kind of, of course, we have Spain, Germany. That Argentina Mexico game tomorrow. That's going to be very interesting to see how
I,
Argentina is back.
I think Argentina is gonna win. Mexico always lose to Argentina, so I think in the Group C, uh, Saudi Arabia I think is gonna surprise and at least get a draw, and I think Argentina is gonna win. So it's gonna be Saudi Arabia 4, Argentina 3, Poland 2, and Mexico 1. So it's gonna be a Poland Argentina game, a do or die game. It's gonna be Lewandowski versus Messi. What a game!
Yeah, that'll be quite the start to the matchup. And another one too that draws my interest here: Portugal and Uruguay on Monday afternoon. Of course, Portugal they won 3-2 over Ghana, and I feel like Ronaldo, he scored a penalty, and it was a very questionable penalty, in my
Very
opinion.
comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think it was a penalty, but I don't think it would have mattered anyway because definitely Portugal took off there towards the end of the game, and I feel like it was everyone else besides Ronaldo. I felt like Ronaldo was holding back their defense. I mean, you got to give Connor some credit because that second half was extremely entertaining, but Portugal just ended up being the better squad there.
And now he's playing even more harder because after the World Cup, he doesn't have any team to go back to since Manchester United, part ways with him.
Right.
So now he doesn't have anything to lose. He give his all to Portugal because he knows that if he wins a World Cup to Portugal, he's gonna be the biggest soccer legend there. Because now he's kind of tied with Eusebio and Figo, even though both of them did not get the Euros, and Cristiano Ronaldo already gave the Euro. But now, if they win the World Cup, then he's gonna be the biggest Portuguese soccer player to ever play it.
Also, I will say this: it's very satisfying to see Qatar get knocked out. They
At least they score. At least they score. At least they make their home fans happy once.
Yeah. So the 10 home fans that they have in Qatar, but anyway,
Yeah, and Ecuador and Senegal is going to be an interesting game because now it's a do or die game. Because I think the Netherlands are going to be like what 3-4-5-0 against Qatar, so the
yeah.
Netherlands are in. So now it's Ecuador versus Senegal, which is another do or die game.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating game between Ecuador and the Senegal. Of course, also on Monday you have Wales and England. Of course, two states of the same country. That'll be a fascinating match. You got Tunisia and French colony versus the home country. You have trying to see what else here. Just coming up here over the next week.
Yeah, France play really well, but I think it's more like Australia. They are just a weaker team, and I feel like they after they got 1-0 ahead, but when France scored twice and got the lead, then they just gave up.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a part of it, but France definitely looks the part of a team that could potentially go back to back. I know it's usually a curse for the team that won it previously, but France looks like a very, very strong team. So they're going to be tough out for anyone.
Yeah, I don't think I think the curse ends this year. France is gonna comfortably qualify into the next stage. I think I even can give my predictions. I think who's gonna qualify. I think it's gonna be Netherlands, Ecuador, England, U.S., Saudi Arabia, Argentina, France, Tunisia, Spain, Japan, Belgium, Morocco, Brazil, Switzerland, Portugal, and Uruguay. That's my round of 16.
Let's see. For me, I would say, let's say, hold on, I gotta see the standings here, just to kind of. I would definitely say Netherlands, Ecuador. I'll say England, and because I'm thinking a tie there between Iran and US, I'm gonna have to go with Iran. Hopefully, I'm wrong there.
If we think about the NFL predictions for the Titans, they always picked against the Titans, and I always pick the Titans.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same logic applies here. I'm going to go with, okay, I'm going to go with Saudi Arabia to advance here, but I'm going to go with a little. Actually, I'll go with Argentina here. I think, yeah. Well, actually, I don't know because I actually might go Mexico over Argentina. Because here's the thing: I think Argentina and Mexico might draw. and then Mexico can beat Saudi Arabia. I don't know. It could be kind of crazy there. So Saudi Arabia and Mexico in Group D. I'm going to go with France and let's go with Denmark. Group E. I'm going to go Spain, and I think Germany will find a way back into it. Well, actually, I don't know. No, Japan will beat Costa Rica. Japan and Spain. I'm going to go Group F. I'm going to go Belgium and Croatia. Group G, Brazil and Switzerland. Group H, Portugal and let's say Uruguay. Portugal and Uruguay.
So we defer on Group D and Group C. Group D, C, and B, the second place.
Yeah. So I don't know. I see some of these games playing out a little bit differently, but yeah, I'll be interested to see it. It's been a crazy World Cup, and I'm sure it's only going to get crazier from here. But we'll definitely have much more on the World Cup as we move forward to our next episode sometime next week. All right, let's get into some college football real quick. Well, I guess to start with the NFL, of course, we have college football ongoing today. It is Black Friday here in the United States, which means we have multiple college football games going on. In the background here, I have Missouri and Arkansas. Missouri is trying to win to go to a bowl game. They are up 29-24 over the Arkansas Razorbacks. So if Arkansas loses, they fall to 6-6. And Missouri would go to 6-6 if they won. Of course, we have one result in college football from last night. Mississippi State upset Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. And, of course, this is in the backdrop of Lane Kiffin maybe not going to Auburn. Of course,
Did you saw his press conference?
Yeah, he says he's expecting to return.
Yeah, he was, a lot of heat with your colleague, John.
Yeah, that's with WCBI, our sister station in Columbus, Mississippi. So he's not. I'm very curious why he decided to release the report. But hey, a nice try, I guess. But it's kind of interesting that Lane Kiffin isn't taking this job, at least for the moment. Maybe the whole situation at Auburn's and their booster is scaring him from taking that job.
I feel like he been through a lot in college football, and now he wants his stability. He wants to build a program. Because if you think about it, Lane Kiffin never built a program. He is is a talented coach, but he went from job to job. Like, in Tennessee he had what, one season. In USC he had like what, 2 seasons.
It was like 3 seasons, and he got fired there. And
Yeah.
at FAU for 3 seasons. He was the Alabama OC for 3 seasons.
So he wants to build something long term, I believe. He doesn't want to go again. I feel like he's now not that. He was a little bit maybe reckless when he was younger. So now he wants a little bit of stability.
Right. So it would be interesting to see what Auburn does now. Of course, let's give credit to Mike Lee to Mississippi State. That's a huge win for Mississippi.
Yeah.
Huge win. Because I was talking about last week that I felt like if Mississippi State didn't win that game, that Mike Leach should be on the hot seat. But, this is huge. Mike Leach, that's huge for him moving forward at Mississippi State. And then, talk about this too. Ole Miss fans, they were upset with a call late in this game, and they started throwing trash in the field. How ironic is that?
How ironic, because now all the hypocrite, if any Ole Miss fan criticized that, it would be very hypocritical, because they were the first to point out when Tennessee fans did it against literally Ole Miss.
Literally. And literally with my own eyes last week, I saw South Carolina fans throw stuff on the field too. I saw them throwing stuff on the field when they were up in that game by 10 points. And this was before they started pulling away and beating the crap out of us in Columbia. But man, these other SEC fan bases, they want to trash Tennessee, but then they do the exact same thing that we do, because we are all crazy. And that's
and how ironic now that Ole Miss spent the entire regular season ranked, even went to the top 10, and now with this win, I think now Mississippi State is going to go to the bowl season ranked, and the Ole Miss Rebels are going to go unranked. Both have the same exact standings: 8 wins, 4 losses in overall season, and 4 wins and 4 losses in SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, we should have seen it coming though, because Ole Miss's first half schedule was not very hard. Their non-con was a joke. I mean, their main non-con game was Georgia Tech, who obviously isn't great this year, and they had an early big win against Kentucky, but as we found out, Kentucky isn't any good. Kentucky's probably going to fall to 6-6 tomorrow with a loss to Louisville. They just they don't have a passing game, and that's kind of an odd thing for a Lane Kiffin offense to not be able to do. I mean, they run the ball so well, but a lot of these SEC defenses are really good at stopping the run, and if they fall behind, they just can't find a way to get their back into a game. So, just not impressed with Ole Miss at all this year. I think they got a lot of work to do, especially considering they got pushed around by Arkansas last week, a team that right now literally is losing to Missouri, a team that, in my opinion, just absolutely stinks. I don't think Missouri is a very good football team, but I think Lane Kiffin, if he decides to stay in Oxford, has some serious work to do. And Oxford. But we do have a hire. And shout out to the Nebraska Cornhuskers because they are currently defeating Iowa 24-7 in the third quarter in Iowa City. A result that I'm sure is making Iowa fans very happy. I mean, because if you think about it, they've been subjected to horrible offense all year. They've wanted to fire their OC. I mean, this is a game that's going to get someone fired, I feel like. Because I'm not watching it, but I can only imagine how terrible that game is for Iowa fans to watch. But back on Nebraska. Matt Rule, former Panthers coach, former Baylor Bears and Temple coach, is being reported now as the guy that will lead the Nebraska Cornhuskers moving forward. I think this is a great hire. I think this is honestly just like one of the first names I thought of when this opening came up. So it's good to see Nebraska land this guy. And he has a history of taking under resource teams to strong success in college football. And I know the Carolina Panthers didn't go well, but the NFL is a completely different game. And in Nebraska, you're going to have someone that's going to be able to find diamonds in the roughs because they used to be able to recruit really well when they were in the Big 12 and you could go down to Texas. But Nebraska can't go to Texas anymore. Now, my curiosity is with USC and UCLA coming to the Big 10, can Nebraska find a way to recruit California? There's a lot of talent there in California now. And Matt Rule, I think, is going to have to find a way to do that because, obviously there's not enough recruits in Nebraska. You got to go nationally. And Nebraska's been so bad for so long. I mean, do you know the last time that Nebraska was in a bowl game? It was 2016 against Tennessee. They haven't been in a bowl game since the Music City Bowl.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, Matt Rule's got his work cut out for him.
And I was trying to remember. So, on top of my mind is Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier that had success in college, went to the NFL, fail, and then come back to college and stay long. I don't think Steve Spurrier had big success in South Carolina, but he's there for 10 years. I mean, Nick Saban.
By their program standards, he's the most successful coach they've ever had.
Yeah. So, I do you remember any coach that had success in college, failed in the NFL, and came back and had success like Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban? That's the two coaches that are compared to like the man.
Yeah, the Arkansas guy, right? The motorcycle, Bobby Petrino. Remember he was and then went to Falcons, was 3-13, got fired, left after 13 games, and went to Arkansas and built them up into a top 5 team before it all came crashing down.
Yeah, that's true. Bobby Petrino as well. Like, yeah, he comparison. I guess if Urban Meyer, like, it's so funny, like how nobody thinks about Urban Meyer as a college football hire. That's crazy. Like, he has success in Florida and Ohio State. He knows how to develop. Like, but I don't understand why college
that I can think of right now that can do both is Pete Carroll. That's the only coach I can think that can do both. I mean, look what he did at USC and now what he's doing in Seattle,
Yeah, because I think in terms of success in both, Pete Carroll's the best. Like, I'm not saying he's the best college football, coach or the best NFL coach, but I think he is the best in terms of succeeding both. That's the biggest thing. Like he's the best succeeding both. He won a national title at USC, and he won Super Bowl with the. Also, another coach that came to my mind that has success in both. One with Dallas and Miami.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Johnson, and also think about Barry Switzer as well, Oklahoma and Dallas as well. So I
Yeah,
mean, a
but
lot of people historically that have done
but
it.
but I think Mac
Modern game
Rule.
is a lot harder.
Yeah,
So it's a it'll be an interesting hire. I wonder what the ceiling is for Nebraska. Can they truly get back to what they used to be? Because I mean, we've seen what Tennessee was able to do this year. And I'll be honest, I didn't know that Tennessee could have a year like this again. Um, Nebraska, you look at the Big Ten West; it's not a very good division. Any team that gets good will do very, very well there. But can they recover to the point where they can compete with like Michigan and Ohio State in the East and Penn State? That to me is the question, and especially with USC and UCLA coming. Those are going to be two more really difficult teams that Nebraska is going to have to compete against.
because if you think about it, Iowa, this loss, this result for Iowa is terrible because now the Purdue Boilermakers, if they got to win, they're gonna go to the Big Ten championship. Like think about it, Iowa is losing to Nebraska and losing the chance to go to the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I mean we all know when the real Big Ten championship game is, and that's tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
that's true.
and you kind of want to if we want to transition into that
Yeah,
from
that sounds good.
Michigan, Ohio State. 3 versus 2. These two teams have been on a collision course all year. Of course, up until last year, Ohio State had like a 10-game winning streak on them. But Michigan, in the cold and snow in Ann Arbor, they broke the streak to Mr. Brightside. They stormed the field. Now Ohio State is looking for revenge in Columbus, Ohio tomorrow. How do you think this one goes, guys? I think it's going to be a very close, very tight game. And I'll say this. I think on the lines of scrimmage, I think Michigan's better. But I don't know if Michigan has the offense that if this were to become a higher scoring game to keep up with Ohio State.
First of all, I definitely bet under the liner. I think it's going to be a close up game. It's going to be by a field goal because the Lions give -8 for Ohio State. I think it's going to be a 3-point differential. But
I think that's fair because I think Michigan, they're going to try to play keep away. They're going to try to run the ball a ton like last year. And I think the one thing for Ohio State is they got to prove they're way tougher. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, they played Northwestern in like 60-mile-an-hour winds, and they couldn't pass. And it was a slugfest. So only won that game by 2 scores, which to me is very concerning because to beat Michigan, you're going to have to beat them in the line of scrimmage. Just look at what Georgia did last year. They bullied them in the line of scrimmage because they bully everyone in the line of scrimmage. But that was the only team that really was able to bully Michigan. Ohio State has to prove they can bully Michigan. And to me, if they can bully Michigan, then they have a chance against Georgia in the playoffs. But I got to see them do it to Michigan first.
yeah, that's true. But how big is this game for Jen Harbor? Imagine getting back-to-back wins against Ohio State and back-to-back wins versus a top-ranked Ohio State, and both of those wins last year and this year would have made them, getting into the college football playoff. So it shows how right the decision was to keep him when they had a tire fire season in 2020.
Yeah, I think this game's just as big for Ryan Day. Even though I think this take is ridiculous, our good friend Dan Wolkin from USA Today wrote a column today saying that if Ryan Day loses tomorrow, he should be on the hot seat, which I think sounds insane. But
I
two
think
straight
warm,
in Columbus aren't going to play well.
warm, and I'll say hot seat, but gives a little warm that if he doesn't make the college football playoff by next year, I think a lot of people will be chanting Meyer because you know Meyer did not lose to Michigan.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, it's kind of the same problem that Billy Napier at Florida is facing right now. I mean, Billy Napier, yeah, he's gonna have some time to rebuild that program, but no Florida coach has lost to Kentucky, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Georgia in the same season. and now he's going to have to. And now tonight he's probably going to lose to Florida State. So his seat's going to be on fuego heading into next year, just because the Florida fans aren't used to losing to every single one of their main opponents ever in the same year. Not
Yeah, yeah. And I know, Florida and Ohio State in way different situations. But do you think if Bill Napier gets fired, do you think? Oh, I mean, why not think about Urban Meyer for the Florida job? I mean, he got a coaching job at Jacksonville. I think the Florida Gators would love to get him back. I mean, he had a
well.
lot of.
I think they're still upset with how the whole thing went down because his whole I have health problems thing was not true. I mean, to see him just say, "Oh, I've got health problems. I'm going to walk away from the game for the good of my family," and then the next year he's back in at Ohio State. That's left a lot of bitter taste in a lot of those people's mouths. A lot of those people, they appreciate what he did there, but they don't want any part of him moving forward.
But the nostalgia thing is like people are gonna really think about, hey, we need a guy that can bring this program back. And I think a lot of people in their minds are gonna be thinking, we try Bill Napier, we try other coaches, but let's bring a guy who can prove that can be a winner in college football.
Right. I mean, and Florida at any given time is super close to being a top 10 team, right? Because they have the talent. Any coach will be able to walk in there within 2 to 3 years, be a top 10 team because you are in Florida. You're the only SEC team in Florida. You should have top 10 recruiting classes minimum. You really should be having top 5 classes. And Florida just has not been recruiting like that at all recently. I think they're like number 9 in next year's class. I meant to look this up because I know Tennessee had a big recruit. Let's see. Oh, let's go. We got a big recruit. The Vols got a big recruit today. Davon Hobbs from Concord, North Carolina, 6'4", 277. He's the defensive lineman. So he'd pick Tennessee over Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, Ohio State, and Michigan. So
That's a big.
for the Vols. But I mean, those are the type of recruits you're going to have to get for Florida. So hold on. I think even On 5 or On 3 of the new recruiting service has Hobbs as a 5-star. So that's a huge get for Tennessee, but and that's the thing for Florida too. You can't get to the point where these other schools are absolutely waxing you in recruiting.
Yeah, Florida currently is number 18, behind Tennessee, that is number 17 in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, well, on 3, they have them at number 7 because they have Bama 1, Georgia 2, Notre Dame's 3. Wow, Ohio State 4, LSU 5. They have Florida at 7. They have Tennessee at number 11. But I don't think that's updated with.
I have the 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, because I think on 3 they take everyone's. So that's cool because this newer. On 3, they talk about average NIL value, like $100,000. So, which is crazy that we're gonna have to take a look. Like, wow, literally, like they have NIL values on each recruit. Like Nico Amiavelia, $1.1 million. Caleb Herron, the edge rusher from Murfreesboro, $160,000. Like this new world of college football is insane.
Yeah, that's and I really think about how this plays out. This new college football world, makes a lot of former college football players angrier. I but I think on the top of all the players who are jealous of the situation is Reggie Bush, because Reggie Bush for way less than that was fun. He was like for something that today would have been pennies.
Right. I mean, he would have been making like $1 million per year at USC easily, especially in Los Angeles. I mean, imagine what Caleb Williams is going to make next year because he's going to have to come back for one more year at USC. He's going to be making so much bank in Los Angeles next year because he might win the Heisman if he beats Notre Dame tomorrow. And I guess we'll segue into that game, USC Notre Dame, because USC they control their own destiny. If they beat Notre Dame tomorrow and then they beat Oregon next week, they're in the playoff just because they have 3 really good wins back to back to back. And I think if they win out and Caleb Williams looks great in all those games, unless CJ Stroud absolutely goes off against Michigan, I think Caleb Williams is your Heisman winner. I really think I'll go on record right now. I think Caleb Williams, if he wins out, he's the Heisman.
But I don't understand why the rankings put LSU on the top of USC. I just don't get it. How a two-loss LSU team, and one of those losses was an unranked Florida State, is on top of USC.
Yeah, I mean USC. What is USC's best win though? Is the problem? USC's best win is UCLA that they just got, and then the LSU they've beaten Alabama. They have Ole Miss as a win. Now, granted, I really think that 40-13 loss to Tennessee should be held against LSU a lot more than it should. It's not that you just lost to Tennessee. We ran you out of the building. I mean, we went down to Death Valley and took over. We took over your trap. So, you know, no matter how much all these people want to talk about South Carolina still scoring touchdowns, we still beat LSU 40-13. So, and you can't change that. But anyway, so how do you see this one go? Because Notre Dame has been a very weird team this year. They've played so much better in the second half of the year to get to 8-3, and I feel like they've played their best in bigger games. I think this is a very dangerous game for USC.
Yeah, Notre Dame season is like a roller coaster, and they're in the upside of it. They're currently in a 5-game winning streak. They beat 2 ranked teams. One of them was the number 4 Clemson, and they won by 21 points with 3 possessions. I mean, it's not that they beat Clemson; they ran out of their building. So I would be worried if I was USC. Even though USC plays in the Coliseum, Notre Dame has a huge fan base throughout the country. I can see them. I can see USC be upset, but I think Lincoln Riley is gonna find a way to win. But what an accomplishment by Lincoln Riley if he gets USC to the college football playoff in year one. It just show how a difference of a coach he is.
And really, what it's a validation of too is the transfer portal, because half of that team is from the transfer portal, and he took that team and he's made them gel together into the best team in the Pac-12 overnight. And it shows that you can build up your team for the transfer portal. And what's about to happen here, Josh, if you watch Josh Pate, he's been hinting at this all offseason. The transfer portal is going to be unlike anything that we've ever seen. That's what he's been saying. And I can only imagine the amount of players that are going to go out there and they're going to try to sell their services. It's going to be an absolute free for all. And, I was saying this leaving the stadium in Columbia Saturday. I hope Tennessee goes out and buys the best 4 defensive backs in the transfer portal, because that would instantly make us into a championship contender. We need the best 4 defensive backs in the transfer portal. I don't care where they're from. Bring them to Knoxville. Boom. Every team's going to be thinking like that. Like, okay, which position group is hurting us, and where can we go find a guy to fix it? It's about to be straight up free agency out here. It's going to be insane.
I mean, that's what college football has become. A junior version of the NFL. I think it's even more Wild West than the NFL because there's no salary cap, so teams can go literally spend millions to get top recruits.
Yeah, I know, and not every school has the same war chest. That's for sure. I come on looking over because Missouri and Arkansas, it's 29-27 now. Missouri, 9 minutes left in the game. Very fascinating to see how this one ends. I'll tell you what, the CBS Black Friday game always seems to be really entertaining. I mean, the two teams can suck, but it can be a high score and highly entertaining game. Black Friday is an underrated day of the year for football. But anyway, on our game real quick, Vols at Vanderbilt tomorrow. Vols are, I believe, like a 14-point favorite, if I'm correct. Yeah, 14-point favorite, of course. Joe Milton making his first start since Pittsburgh last year. Obviously, our dear Hendon Hooker, unfortunately, his career is over at Tennessee because of an ACL. And really the story here is, can Tennessee's defense please show up tomorrow? Can the defense please show up? Because the defense let us down last week, 63 points at South Carolina. I don't think Mike Wright is capable of that, but against this defense, maybe your local high school team could score 60 points at Tennessee. What do you think here about Tennessee Vanderbilt?
I think it's a high risk game, because Vandy, first of all, has something to fight for. If they win this
Well,
game, they get to a bowl game. Imagine in a year one for a new head coach. That's massive for a team that literally did not win a single SEC game for back-to-back years. So now they came up strong against Kentucky and Florida. So Vanderbilt right now is on a good streak. Like we talk about USC, Notre Dame. I feel like it's a high risk game. I think Tennessee can take care of business, but I think it's going to be one or two possessions. But worries me about is the locker room environment because according to the website all for Tennessee.com is that Jerry Banks did not travel to the South Carolina game, and a lot of that is because of the fight involving Hendon Hooker, even Joe Milton, because they were fighting over NIL money.
well, I don't know if that's. I think that's not true, but I don't know. Like clearly something went wrong here. I
Yeah,
said this on Monday. I think the pressure got to them, right? Because they weren't expecting to be in a national title fight, and it got to them. So I and plus here's the thing: I don't think Jeremy Banks would have made that much of a difference last Saturday because I mean our secondary was just horrible. Like it just and Jeremy Banks is not a secondary player. And we have to find a way to get pressure here. We cannot let Mike Wright sit back there and do whatever he wants all day because we know they like to study anyway at Vanderbilt. You can't give him time to study for his final exams back there and still be able to throw the football. We've got to get to the quarterback tomorrow. And then on the opposite side, with Joe Milton, I honestly think that we need to see him do some option because the dude, I mean, Joe Milton, you've seen him before. He is big, he is fast. And of course, we know he's got a cannon for an arm. But in a full 60-minute game, has he truly learned to control his long balls? Because if he has learned the touch, I mean, his deep balls are going to be absolutely deadly. Because Joe Milton can throw that rock. So I'm very
yeah,
interested to see what he can
the
do.
overthrows. That's what worries me about Joe Milton.
Yeah. I mean, and Hendon Hooker overthrew some too, but not to the extent that we know Milton did the last year. But in his limited time, he has looked way better this year. But those were in low pressure situations. So I still think we're going to win tomorrow. I think we're going to win by like 10 points. But I think it's going to be a game that's going to stress Tennessee fans out. It may not be the most fun watch in the world, but we have something to play for too. And this game is so huge for Josh Heupel and this staff because we lost our chance at a national title last week. But if we can mentally recover, come out here, beat our in-state rival, and go to a New Year's Six game, then it shows that this locker room is not divided, it's not broken, and we can move on and still finish what has been an amazing season. Because if you win tomorrow, finish 10-2, this is an A season, not an A plus because you had a shot at the title and you blew your chance at it, but still an A season where you beat LSU, Alabama, Florida, and won 10 games. So it's a lot on the line tomorrow. And because here's the thing, this has been one of the most fun seasons I've ever experienced as a sports fan of any of my teams. And I really don't want it to end with losses to
South Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. It kind of give flashbacks of 2016.
yes. And we do have a comment from a fan back on
Yeah,
USA Wells. The United, I'm not sure who it is. I think that's Hebrew, I think.
yeah, we have international fans now.
Yes,
Probably, maybe
that's
he's in Qatar. Maybe he's
whoever
in
you are,
Qatar.
thank you for watching us. The United States football team is surprising many people. Played better against Wales and against England. I see a bright future for American football in MLS League. Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And obviously, the MLS that continuing to develop is going to be huge for the future of the American team. But I really do think that for our main 11, we got to find a way. If our main 11 can be European players, I really do think that would help us out moving forward. But still, you want a strong MLS team.
Yeah, and also I think one thing that I will go back a little bit in terms of U.S. soccer. I just feel like the MLS players have to be less naive. Like, we criticize a lot Zimmerman. I mean, he was one of the best defenders in MLS, and he's not playing really well. I feel like, I don't know, like, MLS, I think, needs to be, competing more with, like, let's say, play more with Mexican teams. I like they have now Campeones League, play, Seattle Sounders winning the CONCACAF Champions League shows they're getting there. But I think competing more with, let's say, against Mexican teams, it just shows the level of maturity improved. But that's in terms of, and we appreciate the comment, and we always love when we have commentators, like, fans commenting on. But
So
back to
Lewis
college.
wishing us a good night, I believe.
Yeah, right, good night. Yeah, he is my friend here in Americana. But one game I want to go back to college football that I still predict that can be a major upset is Texas A&M LSU. I think Texas A&M is going to upset the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I don't think Texas A&M has any offense, but their defense could muddy up the game a little bit. We'll have to see on that. For me, upset alert: Oregon State over Oregon. I could see that happening. Oregon State has been a really solidly underrated team all year, and that's going to be the biggest game in Corvallis in a very long time. That's going to be a fiery atmosphere in Research Stadium. So that's my upset pick for tomorrow.
Yeah. So we both have big upset alerts, and
Kind of wrap things up here. And I guess
NFL.
you're picking Vols too, right?
Yeah, I'm picking the Vols. I think
While we're on, and while we're on college sports, real quick, Tennessee, Kansas tonight. College basketball, they're down in Balfour, Atlanta. Two really good performances for the Vols this week. They dominated Butler on Wednesday night. It was like 71-43. It smothered them on defense. And then yesterday they had to go to overtime to beat the USC Trojans, but they won it 73-66. Neither game they shot well from the free, but they're really getting the ball inside. And I think that's huge for this team. They lost to Colorado mainly because they just took like 30 threes and they couldn't hit any of them. So I think that as long as you can't hit the threes, you got to find a way to get the ball to the hoop. Julian Phillips, the 5-star freshman that came into Tennessee, 27 points yesterday. Great performance. Huge opportunity for the Vols and Rick Barnes to get a quality win tonight.
And I like because now it's gonna be because we had the Tennessee Kansas home and home series, and Kansas beat Tennessee back in 2020, back in 2019-2020 season in Lawrence, and then Tennessee beat Kansas in the 2020-2021 season in Knoxville. So they're tied one apiece. And now this game,
and remember they beat us in Brooklyn a couple years ago, 2018.
Yeah.
But then we beat them back in 2010. So it's been back and forth. We've played several times over the past couple of years. So it seems like we always keep on running into each other.
Yeah, and shout out to my dear friend, one of my best friend, Italo Costa. He's a alum for the KU Jayhawks. He went to the University of Kansas, so we always
to go to because they are 6-5. They got a big game tomorrow in the Sunflower Showdown. So it'd be cool if they could pull off that upset against Kansas State, but their team is just not playing well in the second half of the year. But hey, still going bowling for the Kansas Jayhawks.
Yeah, but in terms of basketball, I picked the Vols to win.
It's gonna be tough. We're actually a 1.5 favorite here, even though they're the 3rd ranked team. We're the 22nd ranked team. Screw it, go Vols. I could see us pulling this out, but we got to find a way to hit some threes. Got to hit some threes tonight. All right, real quick, NFL Thanksgiving reaction. 3 games yesterday. Bills won on the last second field goal, 28-25. Barely went inside the upright. Cowboys beat the Giants 28-20. And the Vikings defeated the Patriots 33-26. What was your overall thoughts on the action yesterday?
I mean, for a Lions fan, it was probably one of their best Thanksgiving in a long time. I imagine a Lions fan that when Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving being blown out, and you come to this game facing the Buffalo Bills, a team that is one of the favorites to win the AFC, championship, and you took them to overtime. So for our Bills fans, I know it was devastating to lose in a last field goal in an overtime field goal, but at least you went to overtime, against one of the best teams in NFL. Probably if you compare it to let's say 5 or 7 Thanksgiving games, it wasn't the best performance the Lions had.
Yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown is the absolute truth. I think they're gonna have to replace Jared Goff, and then when they do, I think that'll make them into a very formidable offense. But on the other side too, they got to find a defense, and Josh Allen pulled his own Patrick Mahomes impression. And you got to really like admire the Bills here because they were put into a tough situation last week when they had to give up a home game to go to Detroit because of their massive snowstorm. But they stayed in Detroit and got 2 back-to-back wins. So strong resilience there by the Buffalo Bills to win those games. For me, go ahead.
No, and I was gonna say, you mentioned Jared Goff. Do you think Jared Goff, now that he failed in Detroit, he's gonna go to the category of a Ted Bridgewater, Mitch Trubisky, and other quarterbacks that are gonna be good backup quarterbacks, or like transitory quarterbacks that, like, a team gets for a 1 year until the high pick draft develops or something like that? Do you think Jared Goff now is going to be in that category?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the future here of Jared Goff because I just don't see him being a strong starter in the league moving forward. Missouri just missed like a 60-yard field goal, so Arkansas now has the ball back in good field position, down to 4:15 left in the game there. So Razorbacks going to try to not end the Missouri season. Big drive there for Eli Drinkwitz, but yeah, definitely Bills a way better team there. But shout out to the Lions; they fight hard, but at some point in the NFL, moral victories are not enough. You got to win football games. Speaking of winning football games, Cowboys, they played really sloppy in that first half, but hey, you got to give them credit. Second half, Dak Prescott was on fire. He was lighting them up, and he got a shout out to who's the backup tight end for the Cowboys? The one that hurdled. Hold on, tight end. I gotta look this up. It was Jake Ferguson. He hurdled this dude from the Giants yesterday. It was absolutely an insane play for the Dallas Cowboys. But also, too, I think I was also really impressed yesterday with Ezekiel Elliott. I thought he ran very hard, and that was the best I've seen him play in a very long time. Frustrating for me as a Tony Pollard fantasy owner, but Ezekiel Elliott looked really, really good.
Yeah, like he got 92 yards, 1 touchdown, and it just showed, like, I remember you literally on our last pod say, give the ball to Tony Pollard, give the ball to Tony. And I guess maybe Ezekiel Elliott listen, on our podcast and be like, I can come back to that level of, performance that I had in 2017, 2018. And, and if he keeps playing like that, Dallas has 2 strong running backs, and there could be a huge differential coming into the playoff scenario, because I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to make the playoffs. With that win, I think they're going to be secure in terms of a wild card. And even maybe, I know it's hard in terms of winning the division because the Eagles are 9-1, but if the Eagles lose this weekend, you'll never know. It's going to be a 1-game differential. And the Eagles, they play the Packers. I know they play at home in a Sunday Night Football, but the Packers, you never know.
Yeah, I just think I think we're gonna have a lot of questions answered about Dak Prescott though, because some of the throws he made were kind of questionable, especially early on, especially on the interception. And then for the Giants, Daniel Jones just, I don't know. I mean, I know they're 7-4 right now. I'm still not convinced about Daniel Jones being the future for New York.
Yeah. Being Daniel Jones, yeah, he's not cut out. Definitely, I feel like he is maybe holding New York Giants back instead of forward.
Yeah, holding Saquon Barkley back too. Then you have Vikings Patriots. Now I'm in, like I had to get up really early. I kind of skipped out on this one. I kind of slept through it, but obviously a lot higher scoring game than I would have anticipated. But a big comeback win for the Vikings. They get ran out of the stadium on Sunday against the Cowboys, and then come back and handle business on Thanksgiving night. Kirk Cousins gets a win in primetime. So good for him.
Yeah, and I think now the Vikings pretty much secured the division, and I was going to compete for the number 1 seed versus the Eagles. I think, the Lions are the biggest contender in terms of division now. Can you, think about it? All of the Vikings contenders in the division are below 500.
I know, they just it's not not a good division there at all. And also, for the Patriots, their pass defense kind of fell apart last night. 301 passing yards they allowed yesterday. But at the same time, Mac Jones had 382 yards passing. That was easily his best performance the entire year as well. But it just wasn't enough for New England Patriots. And that AFC playoff picture is going to get really weird, really crazy, really fast. Because you have all those AFC East teams that are just right on top of each other. And before we leave, I have to ask you as a Jets fan, this whole Zach Wilson situation. Apparently, he got, of course, he's getting benched for
Mike White.
And apparently, because of his post-game comments where he said he wasn't the problem, he's not even on the depth chart. He's not even the backup for this week. Basically, he's being put in timeout. Is Zach Wilson officially a bust now?
I think that Robert Saleh, he sees this season as a make it or break it. He needs to be in the wild card this season. I think even the last seed. And Zach Wilson just not cutting it. And he made the bold change, and it's just a maturity that I feel like Saleh wasn't seeing. Like, even maybe in the back of his mind, the situation with the whole off the field controversy with the affair and everything, maybe give the impression to Robert Saleh that Zach Wilson was not as mature and not as a leadership quarterback that he wanted. Especially how tough Robert Saleh is as a coach.
Yeah, gonna be fascinating to see if he gets another chance to start. But if he gets another chance, it's gonna be his last chance. So, yeah, Zach Wilson is in very dangerous territory before he too falls into that Mitchell Trubisky camp. So,
yeah, he's that close. Like, it's so funny how both the New York quarterbacks right now are doing a good season compared to the previous seasons, but both of them are not seen as the future. And it's so funny, both of them, the Giants are 7-4 and the Jets are 6-4. So I guess it's the best football for a New Yorker ever seen, and with the Bills as well. But the Jets and the Giants, both of their fans are not happy with their starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, even though they both have winning records. So it goes to show you the mirage that both teams exist, and they both still might miss the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting last month of the season for the New York teams. I mean, probably your safest teams right now are Minnesota and the Tennessee Titans. So anyway, I guess it's time for us to wrap up here. Episode 52 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports. When we come back, we'll have more World Cup reaction. U.S., Iran, Brazil versus Switzerland and Cameroon. And we'll hopefully know our round of 16 by then. And, of course, we'll react to the last full week of college football, preview championship week, and continue to follow the NFL.
It's just funny that we had to do 2 episodes this week, but we had to of how many sports we had.
Yeah, I mean, we went an hour and a half here. We went 3 hours on Monday, so 4.5 hours of sports content this week on 3 sports. This is truly the busiest sports time. Imagine if we were still in RSS, so there's no way.
Yeah, like if we're still in RSS, then it would be caller listeners calling to be like complaining how, and other shows would be like complaining because we ran over time.
Yeah, there'd be no way for us to pull it all off. But here, we have all the time in the world. But for Gustavo Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nicholas Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the United States, and you have been listening to Two Countries, Two America, All Sports, the only sports podcast about Brazilian and American sports. You have a good one. Peter Piper picked peppers, but